Should I? So now does it show that it's
So
recording?
if you record, yeah, it's showing recording. Yeah.
Okay. So now, okay.
Bismillah. We have Sister Mudassir.
Salam alaikum.
Yeah. MashaAllah.
So, mashallah, we have people who are punctual. Mashallah, Madu, mashallah. And how is your day so far? And Elia, guys, how are your days so far? Inshallah. Everything is doing well, inshallah. Bismillah. MashaAllah. Tabarakallah.
Alhamdulillah. How is your day? Assalamu alaikum.
Alhamdulillah. 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 May Allah give us the barakah of this beautiful, blessed day. Ameen. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillah.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I'm Nadia.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Nadia, how are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, and you, how are you doing?
Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair for coming. Oh, mashallah.
Thank you for Jazakallah khairan.
Everyone's face. I love seeing everyone's face. Like, I think, yani, subhanallah, we are created with a need to see each other, subhanallah. You realize when we're not seeing each other that, how much we miss seeing, even just seeing everyone's face. Alhamdulillah.
That's true.
Alhamdulillah. And I think Tumomi is coming up now. Bismillah. So let me see here. Inshallah, we can get started. Bismillah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Walillahi al-asma'il husna fad'uuhu biha. So this series, our intention from it is to understand what are the beautiful names of God and why are we asked in this beautiful ayah in the Quran, and to God alone belongs all the beautiful names and attributes. So call upon him with them. Subhanallah, it's a very simple, very short ayah, but it holds like three huge concepts. The first concept, walillah, to God alone. Like this concept, to God alone belongs. Like what is coming belongs only to God. What does that belongs only to God? The absolute beautiful names. I think the way, like we translate Asma al-Husna to the beautiful names, maybe a better way of thinking about is those absolute perfect names of God, like the absolute ones. So that's the second concept, that God has absolute beautiful names. That concept is an amazing concept. God has absolute. And when we say absolute, means 100% and means eternal, because we can find someone who is, who is generous on one level, but not always generous. But is generous, maybe, if generosity is 100%, they may be showing, 20, 30, 40, 50. But when we say Allah, the generous, means the concept of generosity itself is a concept that is taught to us. Like the concept itself, generosity, belongs to God. It's given to us. It flows through us so that we can know who God is. So those beautiful names, those absolute, eternal, magnificent, perfect names of God is something that, that would make everyone curious. And we need now to, this series, like, what should we do about this? And then God in the same ayah tells us, so call upon him with them. That is a totally interesting concept. God is saying to us, to him alone belongs the absolute, eternal, beautiful attribute names. And these are beautiful, magnificent, eternal, perfect. They are the source of any kind of attribute that we like. What we experience here is like a drop, a fragment from it. And then we say, so why do we have all of this? Then he answers, so call upon him with them. Okay, so Now I have a question to you, and that question is, if I can change the slide, what does this phrase or this ayah mean to you? Call upon God with his beautiful names. What does it mean to you? I don't know how many of you are familiar with the chat box, but those who can write in the chat box, we have 1 minute. Mariam's gonna keep the timer. And because someone is not in front of a chat box, I know who she is, just keep it in your head and we'll ask you Mudathir. So everyone just write down in the chat box, what does it mean to you to call upon God with his beautiful names? Anything that comes to you. And Mudathir, just keep it in your head. So write it down so that we can see it. Mariam will be the one who's reading it back to us. Okay. So do you want to read some of the sharings, Mariam?
Are you reading them now or later?
Now would be fine.
Okay. Idea that we can call upon any of Allah's names in our times of need, our times of joy, connect to each of his names as we get to know him and draw closer to him, inshallah. Isra said, address God knowing who God is, that he is the source of all I need and long for. Power, compassion, love, wisdom is with God.
Mm-hmm.
Ziba said, ask him only, knowing he is the source.
Mm-hmm. So does anyone else want to add something? Mudathir, Momi?
Yeah, I can. What I would think of it is having, like, if I want him to show mercy, then I would call him by that name, you know, that particular name, that he is the all merciful. So show mercy at that moment in time. Or when you're asking for rizq, for some, you know, what your that at that moment of time in need is, so call him by Razak. So link it to the need.
Mm-hmm. I like that, to link it to the need. MashaAllah. So there's another ayah that we'll stop and reflect on, and this ayah says, قُلْ مَا يَعْبَأْ بِكُمْ رَبِّي لَوْلَا دُعَائِكُمْ. Say, my Rabb. And the translation, like that I could, like, you know, make up for the word Rabb is my loving, providing, sustaining, guiding Lord. Like, it cannot be just the word Lord. Would not take you seriously, would not lift your burdens, لَوْلَا دُعَائُكُمْ, except for your calling upon him. فَقَدْ كَذَّبْتُمْ فَسَوْفَ يَكُونُ لِزَامًا. For you would have rejected the truth, the guidance, and thus it, probably referring to the burden, will become yours, inseparable from you. So let's slow down and read it again. In this ayah, in Surah Al-Furqan, it is said, say, my Rabb, the one who loves, provides, sustains, and guides me. So for him to love, provide, sustain, guide me, means that he is already taking care of me. He's already giving me what I need. He's providing me, he's sustaining me, he's guiding me. He's doing it out of love for me. So that is already given. But then it goes on, مَا يَعْبَأُ بِكُمْ. A lot of translations put مَا يَعْبَأُ بِكُمْ as doesn't care for you. But Allah is the Rabb. The Rabb definition means he cares. Like the definition of Rabb means he already cares. So then another translation, which I like more, would not take your need to lift a burden seriously. Like, I have a burden. That burden, whatever that burden is, I'm anxious about something, I need risk, I need health. So that, as long as it's between me and me, I'm not invoking God in it at all. I'm not calling upon him with it. It stays with me. So he said, only those that he would like, that he would actually make this something to connect to him, except for your calling upon him. So when we call upon him, those names that we still are like thinking about, what does it mean to call upon him? Those that will call upon him, those will be the ones that God will then make us see that lifting, like the lifting, like you were saying, Mudathir, like if I'm asking for rizq, when I'm asking with the name Ar-Razzaq, when I know it's the Razzaq I'm asking, I will witness the lifting. So, and then from there, if I don't do this, there is a big statement. If I don't do this, for you would have rejected that guidance. Like God, the name Rabb is the loving, providing, sustaining, guiding. If I'm not calling upon him with this name, I would have means I reject the guidance. Something comes to my heart and I'm very anxious and I realize I need to do something, and that thing that I want to do, I'm helpless, I cannot do it. There is a guidance, that an anxiety that comes to me is a guidance that says, this that you want to do is something that you cannot do, but the feeling that you have is telling you, you have a Rabb that can do it for you. And this feeling is coming so that it's your time, it's like your recharge time, your opportunity to know that Rabb. Now go and ask that Rabb. This is coming to you, this feeling, this overwhelming feeling is coming to say, okay, Alia, stop. Now go back and speak to your Rabb. This is the time to speak to your Rabb. You've been you've been meeting goals, doing things, thinking you're doing it on your own. Now you cannot claim this anymore. Now you'll have to stop and realize that this need, this burden, if you want to say that needs to be lifted, is something that you cannot do. You have to call on your Rabb. If you don't do that, you would have rejected that truth, the guidance, the truth and the guidance that you have a Rabb. We have a loving, providing, sustaining guide. We would have rejected that because we would act like I have no one. I am responsible for myself. I'm defending for myself. No one was with me. I'm an orphan. This is my personal battle. That is very overwhelming. So God then says, if you choose to do that, thus it probably is the burden will become yours. It will be inseparable from you. Like that burden, that overwhelming burden that I'm carrying will stay with me. There's no way to lift it because the reality is I am a needy being. I'm helpless. I cannot do all the things I want to do. So that burden will always be with me. So you can see both these beautiful ayahs. One is saying God has these most beautiful absolute qualities and names that he made for us to know him and call upon him. And as we'll keep unfolding what is call upon him. Today, each of us had some thought about what is call upon him. But then on the other side, this is only saying, if you choose not to call upon him, then there is a burden that will be stuck to you and it will be yours, inseparable. So there is so that it also tells us a bit about that call upon him. Like calling upon him is that lifting of the burden, realizing who is my real Rabb and who to turn to. And so we're not going to ask this one now, but today I think we are at the point where I'm going to go to why is it the name Rabb? The name Rabb that we chose to start with is the one that's very, very close to all of us, because it has this tarbiyah, this upbringing, a lot of parents who have a good relation with their children, have a healthy, normal, given, caring, loving, sustaining, guiding feelings in their heart for their children, will know it instantly. Like they know what does it feel that you need, like, you know, you love your child and you're providing and sustaining, but you also need to guide them. Like, you need to stop them sometimes. You need to, like, you know, put limits. You need to, you know, let them know, you know, this is wrong and right. You might even sometimes punish them because, like, you know, they're testing and seeing where the limits is. So like that concept of Rabb is one of the closest to us because we get to experience it, hopefully either through parents, if we have parents, loving parents, or through people, or through even seeing around us in the creation what animals do, like, you know, how animals, like, you know, deal with taking care of their own, like, you know, children. So this beautiful ayah, the context is Moses and his brother Harun are in front of the Pharaoh, who thinks he is the Rabb of the lands. He is the Lord, the king, the provider, the sustainer, and the guide of his people. That's what he thinks about himself. He thinks of himself worth of worship. And then, like, you know, Moses comes and says, there is another Rabb. So then he asks both of them, قَالَ فَمَنْ رَبُّكُمَا يَا مُوسَى? Who then is the Rabb of both of you, O Moses? Like, who is that Rabb that both of you claim? And I love this answer that Allah gave us so that we can use it and use it as like a measuring stick. He said, our Lord is the who gave each thing its form and nature, then guided it aright. So Allah, this Rabb, is the one that gives his creation form, the best form and nature. In accordance to what? In accordance what he meant for this creation to be. And then after he gave it this perfect form and nature, he guided it. He didn't just leave it. No, he guided it aright. Like, that guidance is for this creation to achieve its potential. So, one word that I want each of you to write in the chat box. How can I prove that God gave everything its form and nature, then guided it aright? And this is a science class. I'm going to ask you, there is a claim by Moses to the Pharaoh that God is someone who gave everything its perfect form and nature, then guided it. One word, write down. What would be, how can I prove that? Just write down one word. Mariam, I don't see what's written. So when you start seeing something, share. Okay. Did we get some words? You can say the word out. It's one word, so.
Can I say rose?
And what does that mean?
So God gave its form,
Uh-huh.
so it has an appearance and a nature. You know, some of them smells
and he guided. But how can we prove it? How can we prove that this is true? Any words out there? Okay, there's an easy one.
Deepa said
Elia said witnessing creation. And,
so like, if you go into like Corpus Quran, like, you will realize that there is so many, like, you know, ayahs in the Quran where God says, so that you will think, so that you will ponder, so that you will witness, so that you will, you know, be cognizant of. Like, God is saying, don't take like, you know, anything here without, just go back and think about it. Go reflect on it, ponder on it, think about it. No wonder our first, like, revelation, as we said last time, was like, you know, read in the name of your Rabb. And the word read means that we are asked to use our tools. Remember, God created everything in its best form and shape and gave it those tools that are meant to help it according to what it was meant to be. We were given cognizant tools to make us think. These are our tools. Why, you know, God, in many places in the Quran says, verily we created the human being in the best conformation with what he is meant to be. And in another place in Surah Al-Sajdah, God says, and then he formed him in accordance with what he's meant to be and breathed into him of his spirit and endowed you with hearing and sight and cognitive hearts. Al-af'ida, cognitive hearts. How seldom are you grateful? So God is saying, like, these are the tools. Like every creation has its tools. Your tools are as-sama, the hearing, is your vision, is your cognizant hearts, which is a very unique way of describing the hearts. Hearts that are cognizant. And قَلِيلًا مَا تُشْكُرُونَ. قَلِيلًا مَا تُشْكُرُونَ is not just that you are like, you're not thankful, but thankfulness in the Quran repeatedly is about using what you have with the way it's meant to be. If you give me like, a cell phone and it's meant to have a, like, very sophisticated functions and I use it just to play games, I'm not thankful for it. I'm using it for something far less than what it's meant to be, or a computer. So here we realize that this cognition is one that God gave us. And he gave this cognition so that we will realize who the names of God, and he has made subservient to you what and all that is in heavens and on earth. In this, behold, there are messages indeed for people who use their cognition and think. So this cognition, the tool we're given, is so that we look and find those messages. And verily in the creation of the heavens and earth and in the succession of night and day, there are indeed messages for all who are endowed with cognitive hearts, ulil albab, or insight. So definitely that cognition is our tool, and that tool is for us to achieve our potential. And the question is like, what is that potential? What is the potential that God sees in us and is giving us all of these tools? And this beautiful like potential is that we have a potential to read the signs out there and in ourselves. We have this cognition and we have cognizant hearts that can allow us to look at things as messages from Ar-RAb, not to dismiss them as just being there. No, everything is intended for our eyes and our cognizant hearts to find out those beautiful names of God, to connect with them. So we shall show them our signs out there in the furthest horizons and in themselves, so that it will become clear to them that this is indeed the truth, whether it's this, the Quran, or this, that Allah, this, the messages, this, the names of God is the truth. Isn't it enough that your sustainer witnesses all things? Like he's always the witness over all of this. So if we take this and we go to outside, like the creation outside, and let's see, with God's creation and slow down and think and ponder and teach our kids this way. When we look at any of the creation, I took two examples. If we take the bee, did Allah create the bee in the best form and nature in accordance to what he intended for it? This bee is interesting, very amazing. We now have a pear tree and our pears are ripe. When one pear falls down, the bees go into the pear, go inside and eat it all and leave the cover out. Like, they go and they're like eating everything inside the pear. But when you see you see the cover, you think there's a pear, you hold it, it's like, they are able to go in the highest mountains, in everywhere, in the, with fruit trees, on grass, and they have an order, they have a queen, they have followers, they have a plan, they have, priorities, they have tribes, everyone has a job. It's like an amazing like colonies of things to learn from. And then the way they put the honey, how they create, the place to put honey. So how are they guided to do all of this? Can we then look into the bee and say that the bee, through the particles, the atoms that make the bee, that these atoms have cognition on their own to do this? This bee whole life cycle is at the end to subserve me, because I'm the one who is enjoying this honey that God says it has healing. So all of this cycle, all of this life cycle, there's so much about them, is for me to benefit, and then to not just say, honey is good, I love honey. that would be just like an animal. Any animal loves honey as well. But my potential is to use that love of honey and go and think about everything about the bee and say, who guided the bee? Who's the guide? Who gave the bee the ability to do this? And that then is meeting my potential. There are birds like the bar-tailed godwit. There is a new sighting for this bird that it has been flying for 8 days non-stop from Alaska to New Zealand. 8 days non-stop. This is the longest flight that has been recorded till today. No airplane can do that. Nothing can do that. So when I went and read, like, you know, I read the records about this bird, everything there, no one is speaking about God. They're just saying that it's all about how it has the best consumption of energy. It consumes the least energy to the point that it does not need to stop to eat or to drink or to sleep. It has the best perfect ratio of the body weight and size that makes it be able to continue to fly in the air. It has the fastest speed of any bird, which makes it able to cover so much distance in very little time. It has the best, like, you know, aerodynamics to make it perfect for air resistance. That is what everyone is speaking about. But for us, if we look at this bird with our cognizant hearts, we are supposed to find out a total different story. We're supposed to look at how God guides this in, there's no GPS, it has its own guide. How God Razak is 8 days. How God al-Mu'in is making this happen. How God the most beautiful is making it perfect. This should just make everyone in awe. So when we meet our potentials, we take this out there and make it something to be like for us to be in awe. Now we come to ourselves. This human being, this being, are we created with the best form and nature? We know that our eyes, our hands, our, like, you know, the fluid in our ears keeps us stable, all the neurological, we know all about that. But is that just our potential? Because this bird's potential is higher than me. It can go 8 days flying. I cannot go 8 days without eating and drinking. So what is my potential that made God say that he has raised me above his other creation? And that potential is that spiritual part of me, that center that we spoke about last time. That is the connection of everything. Our physical potential, there's people who run marathons, we have mental potential, people who solve like computers, we have emotional potentials, people who are able, like, to make everyone feel at home. But our true potential is that cognitive heart potential, that spiritual part of us that is looking for meaning. That's why that first decree, again, is read. And then what are we going to read this time? We're going to read those feelings inside us. Rumi says there is a voice that doesn't use word, just listen. God is saying, when God says there's going to be signs inside you, that is what he's referring to. He says, listen to that voice inside you. And even secular people, they would say again, listen to your feelings. They're trying to tell you something. This is secular literature. But that is to unlock our potential, the human potential. The animal's potential, they already, each one of them reaches its potential. The cows produce the milk. The bees produce the honey. Everything produces its potential, does its potential. So all of them, cattle, whatever it is out there, it meets its potential. It uses what it has to meet. You don't see birds in the morning say, I don't feel like waking up today. I'm gonna snooze a little bit longer. They have that in GPS and they work for it. So what is our potential? That potential that we know through our feelings, through the concept of ruh, is that we become in total connection with God. The names of God, which we started with, وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءِ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا, becomes the way we live our life. those who are in continuous remembrance of God. We have a potential to be in continuous remembrance of God. Doing what? Standing, sitting, lying down. Isn't it interesting that God is saying to us that we can be thinking of him lying down? Like those of you who don't get to sleep very easily, or like, you know, need to stay in bed a little bit before they wake up. Like while you're there, God is saying, that is a time for remembering me every time. Standing, sitting, lying down. The lying down part it always amazed me. Like even when you're like going to sleep, just like there. Vita'arafu Maryam was telling us how to use our sleeping time as a way to connect with God. So it's like our potential is to be in continuous connection with God. Standing, sitting, lying down. Always reflecting on creation. The heavens, the earth, we are part of creation, on myself, on my feelings. So the outside is like me, but inside is those feelings inside me. What are these feelings telling me? Oh, Ar-RAb, ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا. There is nothing that you created that doesn't have a meaning. That bird that is traveling 8 days has a meaning. The bees has a meaning. The cow that produces milk has a meaning. The feelings I find inside me, whether they're anxiety feelings or feelings of love for people, they have a meaning. And those meanings all point to who created, who's the one who owns those beautiful names, the feelings that I need. I have a feeling for, if I'm anxious, I have a feeling for peace. Who owns peace? Who's the giver of peace? If I have a need for order, then who is the planner? Who is the one who puts order? Then that is my need. So all those feelings, those needs, they take me to him, to connect to him. And if I don't get there, then it's a burden on me, because I live for short. I cannot take care of everyone I love. I think I know what's right, but no one is listening. I see something happening and doesn't matter how much I want it, they don't see that there is something wrong with the situation. So I can take this burden and feel totally helpless, or I can say, oh, this is my moment to call on God with my needs, with the needs, the beautiful needs and attributes I need, whether it is safety, whether it is guidance, whether it is abundance, whether it is risk. But if I don't do there, it becomes my burden and I suffer. And that's why the end of this ayah is, you are the all perfect. Even the feelings that happen to me that I don't like is out of your perfection. The situation that I found myself that I don't like is out of your perfect training for me. So please make me realize that is your call on me to connect with you. Otherwise, I will suffer. And that's why it ends up keep us safe from the torment of suffering. Okay, our now last 1 minute, because time is over. I'd like you to write, what is your take-home message? 1 minute. So please take your time now. We'd like everyone to write something, because it will show us as we move on, like what is helpful, what isn't clear. Mariam, do you want to read? or people can read their messages. So like Elia, do you want to read yours? Like everyone can read their message. It's easier when you write, it becomes easier to formulate. So can everyone read their message? If you don't want to read your message, then Mariam, go ahead, read the messages, Mariam.
Eva said to realize our potential to connect to our Rabb in each moment and use it to connect to him.
Elia has before me. Elia wrote here. Take away.
Oh, the Elia. Take away. Allah has given us the gift of always being in remembrance of him, and has given us so many names to call upon for each moment, situation, and we can witness him through the beauty and miracles of his creation. He is our Rabb, our loving creator and sustainer. Inan, everything is designed in the best shape. We have to call on him in his attributes in need. That's all I can see.
Okay. So mashallah, like
Sister Nadia said, ask Allah. Allah asks us to use our brain to see his creation.
SubhanAllah. So subhanallah, like my hope is that inshallah we'll continue to do this. We'll still maybe have one more or two more sessions on Rabb, but after that we'll have a sign-up sheet where we'll be asking you to, like, you know, prepare one of the names that you connect most with. And our goal for next week, we'll have a question for you now to prepare for next week. We'll start with is like, where do you see your Rabb this week? Like, so just to come back and say, I saw my Rabb, my loving, providing, sustaining, guiding Lord. I've seen him this week in. So if you can bring back 2 or 3 situations, it will make it easier. I think what we want to do is go beyond what it means to, like, to actually practice seeing, like to do that practice in seeing. And it could be seeing it out there. It could be seeing it, like, you know, in yourself. So you might be looking, like I remember my, we raised dogs when I was in Egypt as a child. We had this very bright dog. I remember her teaching her kids how to respect her. So food would be put, she would not touch the food until her kids leave, like the puppies leave the plate. But if she, after they leave the plate and she goes to the plate, if any puppy dares come, they will be like, you know, just thrown away. So she's like, there is like, she's putting limits. Can you imagine a dog and its puppies? Like, you eat when you're done, it's my time, no one comes here. You should see the puppies when she eats after that. They're just looking at like, no one dares come. Like, she does not approach the food until they're done. But once she's done, they just sit back and go like this. And then I saw her taking them one by one, like training them how to bark and come back. And the rest have to wait, like all like good students. And then she puts this one back, takes the other one. It's like, how, like the one, Allah subhanahu who gave this dog the ability to know how to train her puppies, how to maintain order with them, how to give each of them individual care. And she was a very strange dog in terms of, we didn't have like a shed. It was a garden. So she wanted to keep her dog safe. She actually did things that rabbits do, dogs don't do. She dug before giving birth a tunnel under the earth, parallel to the earth. And when she gave birth, she would lick every, like, you know, litter and then put them in the tunnel to keep them warm. Who guided this dog to care for the puppy? So that is my sharing. We need to share other things next week.
Alia, do you want to pause the recording and we can ask people to share, inshallah, once if they want to stay, we can share whatever their thoughts are, inshallah.